Hi, everyone, and welcome to the final of the three global events set up by myself. This one is sponsored by my company, Lawler's Law Limited, which does mental health awareness training and also mental health consultancy as a solicitor. And this session is all about mental health and the impact it has on the youth. Which I think since COVID-19, this is obviously a very important subject to discuss about the mental health of our youth, and also very recently, so recently as of yesterday, with Simone Biles pulling out of the US gymnastics team because of her own mental well-being. That was a bold call because Simone is the poster girl for the Olympics, not only for the US team, but for the whole of the Olympics, because when you think gymnastics, you think of Simone Biles. So for her to make that call during the final is a big call, but also credit to her teammates to continue doing how they did, because they wouldn't have been expecting that for Simone to pull out. I believe she put a post out the day before saying the pressures of carrying the weight of a nation on her shoulders. By way of introduction, my name's Steve Lawler. I run Lawler's Law Limited. I'm a mental health lawyer, several years experience, do mental health awareness training, have set up the Legal Wolf podcast, which I seem to be known for quite a lot globally for that work, which is brilliant. So that's me. And now if we hear from the co-host, Saba, for her to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Saba. A few of you already know me. And for those of you who don't, I was originally interviewed by Stephen for Legal Wolf podcast. And my passion for mental health has been since the last 12, 13 years. So I'm a strong mental health advocate and I'm an educational professional. I've been in education for 7 years. And I am also community coordinator on Space Official, where I get to speak to space enthusiasts and connect with professionals in the industry. And it's an absolute pleasure to be co-hosting alongside Steve and with yourselves. So thank you.
Thank you both, Steve and Saba, for putting this together. It's wonderful to see some of the familiar faces now. We are creating a small group of advocates just by meeting on these panels, which is wonderful. Well, I know some of you, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a filmmaker. And my latest film, Connecting the Dots, is exclusively the voices of young people, something that is the first time of a documentary of its kind that brings together the voices of young people from around the world in a global call to action to pay attention to young people's mental health. It's time for all of us to listen, and they are talking very eloquently. So that's why I'm here, to support all of the people that are part of the film and the ones who have resonated with their stories and who are part of the movement that we are trying to bring forward. And this is part of it. So thank you for putting this together.
Hi all, I'm from Italy, and I'm delighted to be here to give voice to a point of view from daughters and sons like me who have had parents suffering from mental health problems, and to join forces to end this stigma globally. So thank you for having me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Coralanne Griffith-Hunte. I am a human industrial and trauma psychologist. I am also senior advisor to the Senate, Congress, and the Assembly, the United Nations, the Geneva Center in Switzerland. And I've been an educator also for about 25 years, K through 12, and I am a professor as well. I run a training and development institute here where we teach on trauma and helping others to understand what trauma really looks like and how we can better implement best practices to make us all well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daisy. I'm here to speak about my lived experiences of mental health, particularly relevant as I had a lot of struggles and challenges as a teenager with depression, being suicidal, self-harm addiction, and anxiety and panic attacks. It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you for organising so that together we can smash the stigma.
Hi, everybody. My name's Sahar. I'm from Belize. I am a mental health advocate, a teacher as well, and the co-founder of an NGO here named Mind Health Connect Belize that is geared towards ending the stigma against mental health and educating the general public on what mental health is. We all have it, and it's very important that we take care of it just like we take care of our physical health. So,
hi everyone, I'm Abdulmalik. I'm a mental health advocate from Nigeria. I'm an online psychotherapist. I'm glad to be here. Thank you everyone for having me.
Hi everybody, this is Marie from Cameroon. I'm sorry if you hear an echo, somebody is trying to get me. I wanted to sit here in my office where there's mental health matters on the wall. I'm not going to introduce myself anymore. I'm just going to say I'm a mom of 3 youths. And I was hoping I'm also a youth because I'm just 42. So let's see how it goes. I'm so excited. Thank you.
If I pass over now to Saba and we can kickstart the conversation on the first topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And it's an absolute pleasure and honor to have all of you here. And obviously, what can we say about mental health and youth? It's what makes us who we are, right? Because when we are impacted by so many traumas or so many experiences growing up, it molds us to the person that we are today. So I know for a fact that we all have questions that want answering, and certain questions that me and Steve together have collaborated and want to ask yourselves, the professionals, the people who have lived these experiences or have studied them. So I guess from a sociological perspective, because I have done sociology, I understand that there are both primary and secondary factors of mental health and how it impacts the youth. And when I say the youth, it could be anyone from the age of a newborn to someone who is a young adult. My question to yourselves is, how or what factors do you consider are most challenging or most impactful to children or to teenagers or to students in both their personal life and the experiences that they have in an educational setting or amongst their peers?
So funnily enough, this week I wrote an article for the Guernsey Press talking about online abuse, particularly on TikTok. That's something that I've experienced a lot of lately. I posted a short video about the estimated value of women's combined labour to the UK economy, and a lot of people didn't like it. And I got a lot of sexist abuse. The comments were calling women a deluded species. Someone said death to your family. So quite extreme reactions there. To me personally, not at what I was saying, which is the difference, isn't it? Critique what I say all you like, but to personally attack someone is the line there. And it got me thinking about the responsibility of social media companies on protecting their users, particularly when they know, TikTok knows that their user base is dominated by youth, teenagers. There's lots of under 18s on TikTok. It's a massive movement with young people, and there is massive bullying and abuse on there. And so I'll run you through the procedure for reporting comments and blocking accounts. So to report comments on TikTok and to block someone's account, you have to scroll down, read through their comments, click on their comments, and then you can report them and click block. So if you're having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of abusive messages, you have to read those before you can report them and block the users, which is kind of a glaring hole in their claim that TikTok cares, because that is obvious that that is not a sufficient mechanism to protect the users of that platform. And when we see, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you post things about COVID-19, social media platforms, including Instagram and Twitter, will flag your content with links to accurate information. So we know that there's already AI crawling through everything we post online. So it's almost a simple solution to me. It's already crawling through it. shouldn't they have, death too? That's quite clearly a threat. Couldn't it flag that up? We've seen racist abuse of footballers lately. Some of the emojis and the words that have been used, they're clearly racist attacks. Couldn't they flag them up? And when we're talking about a really young user base of many of these networks, the damage that it does, and it's in my mind, it's very different than being bullied at school, because being bullied at school is bad enough, but social media is in your hand, it's in your home. Unless you get rid of your phone, it's not really escapable, because we use it to talk to our friends. We don't expect to be meeting that kind of abuse on those platforms, and yet it's happening all the time. So that's a little bit just to kick off the conversation about some of the challenges that youth are facing today. Social media is one of those challenges. We also see rising rates of self-harm, particularly in young girls. And social media contributes to that as well. We're portraying these false, shiny, perfect versions of ourselves. The editing that they do on their photos. And when I was a young girl, it was bad enough just, well, I am a young girl.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
As a teenage girl,
as a teenager,
it was bad enough looking through magazines, and now it's just constant, and you don't know what's real and what's not real, and that's really damaging to self-esteem, and it's really damaging to mental health.
Yeah. Thank you, Daisy. And you brought up a topic that is very taboo, but I do want to bring it up because I was actually in Belgium when it was the England versus Italy match. Now, prior to that, it was Spain versus Italy. Now, Europeans, when they lose a match, tend to have a different mentality. However, when England lost the match, and mind you, these footballers are children. One of them's 19, one of them's 20. He even cried and went running to hug his coach. We all saw that, and still got abused. Now, my friend who is a governor had to actually go through the comments, like Daisy said, and report them. And guess what? Majority of the people who were abusing and throwing racist comments were teachers. Majority of them. Can you believe that? So now this brings me on to a question about awareness, about mental health awareness within a school setting as well. And not just the students, we're talking about the teachers as well now. So I know some of you are teachers here. So could I please have a teacher first talk about their mental health awareness within a school setting and how they feel about knowing that there are teachers out there who are going on social media and posting racist comments. And then I would also like to hear from those who have endured this type of racism just over something so trivial, so inferior. It's just football, sorry to say. And I know a lot of football fans out there listening will say no way, but it doesn't mean it should warrant it. But it's just football in the sense that it shouldn't warrant racism, should it really? That's what my point is. But so I guess I'd like to hear from someone, please, about how they think mental health is spoken about or brought to awareness in a school setting.
Yeah, I'm a teacher, so I have no idea that teachers would make those very vile comments. That's absolutely shocking to me, as we are leaders and we are setting examples for the youth of the world. They are the future of the world. So that is very sad to hear. And I think that whole situation, I know, sensitive for Steve. It's absolutely heartbreaking just to know that, people would display their anger in that way. It's fine to be upset. It's fine to be angry. But I think that highlights what we need to work on as a society. We need to work on channeling that anger into something else, whether it's mindfulness, meditation, exercise. There's so many things that you can do. And we all get angry, or we all feel these big, powerful emotions, but there's a better way to do it than hurting somebody else. And I live in a country where, there is quite a bit of violence. And a lot of it comes from people just not knowing how to, take care of themselves. And so we really need to do better with that. So That's what I have to say. Sorry, that's my dog. But yeah, thank you.
I really wanted to participate today because, well, I still feel like I'm a youth and I have 3 boys, 17, 15, and the other one just turned 12. And I also have my kid sister with me. She's also 17. So because I am who I am and everything, I decided from the time I got pregnant that my children are going to know about mental health, and we are going to have these conversations at home. And I'm even going to take them to the street, to see some of these people who are like the people we call crazy, and stuff like that. And I've documented all of that. In my house, we have a round table and we sit around the table and we talk. When the pandemic just hit, I knew it was very important when they had the lockdown, because they just went to school one morning and they said, go home. So I wasn't in town and I was so concerned how they were going to take this and everything. And so once I came back, we sat on the table and I played some documentary on COVID and what they could do. And I listened to each of them, what they are missing, what they're going to miss. I made them to talk about it. And then I also invited some kids from the neighborhood and we had this conversation and I could really see how everybody felt better. And so it's all about normalizing the conversation. Unfortunately, when I tried to go to schools when they resumed after months, to kind of have some talks for free, they said, oh no, they were so busy, the program and all of that. And some of their friends did reach out to me privately because they were struggling and things were not going well at home, because when parents come back with their own stress, they take it out on the children. That's how it happens in my country. So there's a lot of awareness to be had, and I wish that the youths could champion it themselves. But sometimes we don't give them that voice, what are you saying? What do you know? Sit down there, But my children know when they have anything, they can bring it up to me. In my house, on the wall, there's the emotions. How are you feeling? What's going on? We do talk. It takes a lot of patience, but I decided that I was going to give to my kids what I didn't get at their age. And if we all do that, you can imagine what the ripple effect would be. So that's just what I wanted to share in terms of awareness. Individually, we might be doing something, but let's see how collectively we can do more. Thank you.
It's a bit sad that you didn't get the support that you wanted from a school for mental health.
I'd like to echo some of the questions and responses that we have heard. I can only speak from a storyteller, from a filmmaker point of view and research and what I see. I believe that what Marie was talking about and what your question earlier, Saba, about where do we start, it's very, very important. The first nucleus of society is the family. Yeah. And I think that that's fundamental when we think about the family as where we start educating and talking about topics like mental health. What kind of support do we give young people? What way do we talk about mental health in a friendly way that is something that it's part of a regular and daily conversation? So that's extremely important. And what Marie is talking is exactly what needs to happen. If everybody will be doing that, that would be phenomenal. But if we take it a step further and we talk about when the kid goes into school, the teachers have to be as educated as the parents. So we cannot expect the parents to be helping their kids to talk about mental health if they are not educated themselves. We cannot expect that the teachers will be able to handle a conversation if they are not educated themselves. And I see this now, not only from the research before we got into making the narrative of connecting the dots, but now that we have done very, very multiple screenings with schools and with families and parents, the testimonies and the reactions that are coming back is the importance of opening up the conversation. And in schools, particularly, some principals of the schools have noticed that in order to start the conversation, they needed to start the conversation with the teachers themselves. They needed to educate the teachers first to be able to then bring it to their students. So when we bring the film, which is a tool to open up that conversation and to listen to the young people, because that's exactly what one of you just said, if we are able to listen and give them a voice, which is the mission that we have, is that we need to understand them to be able to then help them out. So there's a process here. We cannot talk about human rights, and Dr. C can testify on these human rights issues without education. And education is primary. So education comes from allowing these people to be able to pass on their knowledge to the next generation. And if we think about the young people, not as the future, but as the present, that will change the mindset of many that are surrounded by young people and that have the opportunity to deal with young people. So we need to listen to them. We need to bring them to the table. We don't talk about them without them. We have to understand this generation that we are dealing with, these two generations, are very different than anything that we have seen in the past. Because yes, we've heard about social media, it's just one aspect, but these people have not lived without it. And this is what they know. So all of us included, but we come, myself included, I come from a generation where we picked up the phone and talked to people, where we met or knocked at someone's door and said, I'm coming to visit, let's have a tea or a coffee. We don't do that anymore. It's all on text, and that language is so fundamental because we do relate to each other in a way that we don't know how that text is perceived. So I think that social media is a contributor. It's not all of it. It's a combination. I think we have a responsibility as a society to be able to bring all of us together, to be able, including professionals in the field, including professionals who have been dealing with mental health for many years. They have to adapt the way that they are doing their therapy to adapt to this new generation that relates to life in a different way, and that they are extremely, extremely informed because of social media. That's the good part about it, but that brings that sense of hopelessness because they are so informed. And then we know that ignorance is bliss. But sometimes that knowledge brings that anxiety. So let's think about all of us as a society, the ones that have information, to be able to pass it on, and pass it on with a language and a way that it will actually help others bring it forward to other people. And I think that's how we can break the stigma and raise awareness of mental health and eventually normalize the conversation.
Noemi, I completely, wholeheartedly agree with everything you've said. You hit the nail on the head. You started with the family. And when you think, I'm very passionate, as a lot of people know, when it comes to educators and their mental health, because I think we often separate teachers from the society, thinking that you have that teacher there who's experiencing so many different things. They are not disconnected from the unit of the society. So they're going into the classroom with all of theirs, not getting the actual tools. And what Saba shared was so disheartening to know that the comments that were made were coming from educators. But here is where we need to, I focus mostly on what can we do? We need to act now. And so I always challenge teacher education. We are still using these programs where we learn about classroom management. We learn about all these different things, and there's not one course that speaks of mental health. Today, 2021, we haven't redefined teacher education. So we're sending out these same human beings as teachers using these same comments, these kind of jokes, these kind of languages in the classroom, and we are thinking that somehow they should get it. These are the same leaders who are principals who have not done any course or any training. And so it questions, how do we make these changes if they're not even had in our program? And so with all the things that we want to see, we might do a 1 week or a few days course or training in the schools. We get someone like Dr. Coralanne comes in, trains the teachers, and then guess what? We go right back, because we know that, okay, next year again, she's going to come back in, run this program. We go through that, and then it keeps going. But when we actually do those assessment in the teacher education and make sure that they have to go through these different trainings and actually get that transformation they need, then we're going to always have this battle of having these conversations. Or why do I need to talk about my students going through this? Why do I need to? And that's because they haven't understood the damaging effect that it can happen with with students. Again, as Noemi mentioned, family. The concept that we have, unfortunately, yes, some parents may not have the wherewithal, so they expect the teachers to cover that. But that's the problem that is there, that when we constantly say, I can do it, so go to school and get that done, then guess what? Here is where the decay is, because we're constantly saying, fill it, persons, fill it. And until we can say, no, I am accountable as a parent, I'm accountable as a teacher, I'm accountable as the media, then guess what? Then we start to make improvements along the way. And I'm not saying that, unfortunately, there are families who are experiencing trauma, so they are relying on whether the church, the school, the community centers, they are, and we have to have that. But the reality is we also need to know that wherever we can fix or we can address in terms of the different groups of people or different communities, then we can see that change. But I always question, a lot of times we look into the school and we forget that it's a group that is sending out these people into the school. It's the universities, it's a higher education. What are we doing there? What are we changing to make sure that if I speak of depression, it's normalized? If I speak of anxiety, it's normalized. What's happening right up there? We need to question that, because they're sending down all these educators who are doing what they can, but not getting the actual tools to make sure mental health discussion is normalized in the classroom and is normalized in the community.
Thank you, Shauna. Incredible. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's pretty amazing to be here. I'm a youth. I'm in my middle 20s, and just like Nomi had said, family is key. I would start from there, but I see it as something that can be in 3 dimensions: family, school, community. I believe the family and the school will take care of the community, because while growing up, I come from a family. I'm privileged to come from a family that even to the last kid in my house, whatever decision that has to be made about this kid, he will be bring on board. This is what we are planning for you. How do you say it? This was how I grew up. So it was until when in high school, I began to meet some of my colleagues, and they'd be like, they don't even have a say. Their family, their father decide for them, their mother decide for them. So at first, I condemned these acts, but later, I realized that the setting and the way that each family, is configured differ. So I believe, well, let me say I'm privileged to come from such family. That has really boosted my self-confidence, boosted my self-esteem. It has allowed me to talk, like I can express myself as however I want. I was taught assertiveness from the beginning. So unlike somebody coming from a family that does not appreciate this, that does not give room for this, definitely it will affect the mental health. So I'll prefer a situation where we start from the family, just as Naomi, Shauna had said. These are the basic agents of socialization. So as we're socializing children, youth into physical health and other aspects of life, mental health is key. There was a training I had for a set of teachers during the COVID, because I come from a country where children are beaten for sometimes things they're not supposed to be blamed for. And if we talk about youth, saying from 18 upward, we will not get to 18, we'll pass through 14, 15, we'll pass through the elementary ages. And some of the things we learn from these from these little ages or from our elementary years are the things that grow with us. We form a schema of all these things, and it reflects in the way we relate to people. It reflects in the way we carry ourselves. It reflects in the way we interact in our environment. So all these will come together to shape us, to shape our thinking about ourselves, to shape our thinking about other people. There are a lot of misconceptions, there are a lot of distortions that youth have nowadays. You now begin to wonder, where is this thing coming from? So sometimes we forgot the foundation, and the foundation most of the time is the family. But leaving the family, we go to school, the interactions we have. Some of our teachers, they are not angels. Blood flows within them. So they are some of them will have some form of mental challenges. Some of them will even have some family issues, coupled with the workload, coupled with other aspects of their life. They'll bring all these things to school. They'll relate with us with this. And sometimes we may not even be able to process this information as we should. And a whole lot of issues like this will make us to think, this teacher did not like me, this teacher did not. Then we begin to form a whole lot of distortions about teachers. This could affect the way we relate to people. Why I mention the community is when teachers have a better understanding of mental health, when the family has better understanding of mental health, these are the people that make up the community. So when issues like this come up in the community, they'll be the ones to educate other members in the community, that probably are still in the old era, or in the old thoughts of children should not be allowed to talk, children should not be, youth should not be given the opportunity. Many of us were privileged to come from family that were allowed to talk, and some do not have this opportunity. This shaped the way we relate. This shaped the way people, talk to, we interact in the community. So this is my own few contribution. The family is very important. The school setting, then together they will clean up the stigma of our mental health in our community. Thank you.
Yes, I really agree with all things that has been said, particularly regarding family. I know how powerful it is when we finally break down the walls of stigma and we let the conversation flow without judgment and opening ourselves up. Because as a child and a teenager, I experienced both of my parents suffering from mental health challenges, but they only got support when they were at severe risk of life. But there was many years of challenges that were going unnoticed because there was silence, there was taboo, there was shame, everything was hidden. And also there was not the knowledge. We didn't know how to call such emotions, such challenges. We did not have a name for those. And we did not know that there was a solution, there was support out there. And also there was no education, there was no information to raise awareness like they do now for cancer or other diseases. And this had a major impact, because I often say that it's not the parental mental illness alone that was the problem for me as a daughter, but it was this lack of information, of prevention and support that was the challenge, because it brought a snowball effect, because it affects everything in an individual life, the friendship, the family bonds, the work, also economy of a family, everything is impacted because it's life, we are humans. And so when I was a child and a teenager, I also experienced some traumas, and when I was a young adult, I thought, how can I give voice to that child, to the teenager, to change the world? Because I knew that there was something that we could be done to do things better. And so after many years of improvement, self-improvement and psychotherapy as well, I finally decided that I had to give voice to my teenage self. And finally, in 2017, I created from scratch an NGO in Italy, which is called COMIP, which stands for Children of Mentally Ill Parents. And it's the first one created by daughters and sons, because one of the taboos that comes with parental mental illness is that children people think that are inheriting automatically and genetically the mental illness. But we are here to demonstrate that with change, with information and prevention and support, it's resilience which is inherited, and there is hope. But to give this hope a chance, we need to start talking about this in an open way, without stigmatizing parents, without putting more blame on their shoulders, and also to all the people. So as an NGO, we try many ways to bring this topic also to people who think it's not something that they are interested in, because they think, oh, I'm not affected, so I don't need to know this. And so they don't go to congresses. So what do? We go on a hiking trails with groups, and then we ask permission to the hiking guide to talk about our NGO and the initiative. And people start opening the eyes and say, oh, I know that a nephew of mine has the mother. And so, and they start to ask themselves, what can I do to change in my possibilities, something for these daughters and sons and for their parents. And these are small examples. And it's very important also for me as a daughter, it was important through psychotherapy to change from a victim position of being subject to traumas and suffering to become an active change agent for myself and for others. But so what I want to say is that we really can join forces to ask governments to make psychotherapy accessible to all, despite their economical condition, because we know how it can change lives, it can save lives. And to me, it was really important. If I could have accessed it before, I would be have living many years better before with these tools. There's lots of tools. So one other things I want to challenge is the belief that I still hear sometimes in my country that mental illnesses are not curable, that you have to accept those, but it's a lie. Actually, you can get better, there is hope. And so we want to do more of these joint events globally to make our voices be heard. So thank you, and I hope to continue this flow with you all.
Thank you so much. I mean, that was just fascinating. And the conversation thus far has been fascinating as well. So a couple of things I want to say, because, you know, so many of you touched on essential components to what we need to do. Back in about 2014, some colleagues and I realized that we aren't talking about it enough. And if we are, we're only talking about it amongst ourselves, amongst the professionals, right? So how does that become helpful? And so what I created, and I'm thankful for the support that I received, is what is called the Safe Space Community. The Safe Space Community has to include every single stakeholder at the table. So you need the students, because they have to know that it didn't start with them. First of all, whatever it is, whatever mental illness or whatever bullying, it's a taught behavior. Someone taught you to be to be involved in racism or whatever. So we have the students at the table, but then we have the clinicians at the table. We have the governmental officials at the table. We have the clergy at the table. We have the teachers at the table. We have the administrators of the colleges at the table, so that we can all voice what it is that we want to see, because we create the societies that we have. And we don't talk about that enough, but with that in mind, I created a curriculum. So I took the time to go into the colleges and to teach on trauma, because here in America, they learn about this much, the social workers, the case managers, even some clinicians, about this much on trauma. And then they're told, you graduated, go out there and be great, right? And the teachers they're not really taught about trauma at all. So what, with the curriculum that we created, and right now in the Department of Education here in New York, we teach trauma. It's mandated. You have to know what trauma looks like, because to me, when I started out, I said, trauma has a taste, Trauma has a smell, trauma has a feel, trauma has a look. When we think of the 5 senses, we have to include how do they affect trauma? And so with implementing, all those stakeholders and the curriculum, so we're teaching it to the teachers. But now I go into the colleges and I teach the case managers, the social workers, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, everyone now, they have to be mandated to learn about trauma. And then I created a faith-based initiative around trauma so that the faith-based leaders understand what trauma is and how they should cater to it. And so then I created the Parent University, because I don't want to tell parents, the last thing you want to say to a parent is parent training. So because you get the lash of, well, I'm a good parent, what do you mean I need training, right? So I've been doing this for years. You can't tell me I need training. So I said, no, you don't need training on how to be a parent. You just need to graduate from the university to understand trauma. So I give them certificates when they complete the trauma program so that they understand, because behavior is secondary. It's not the primary source, but we punish behavior and it's incorrect. You should not punish behavior. It's almost as though you're punishing the fruit and not dealing with the root of the tree. So if we can get to the root of the tree, then we understand where trauma comes from. Yes, some of it is genetic. We know that trauma can be passed from the mom to the child that she carries. We know that trauma is transferred through semen. We have the scientific evidence for all of that. But then what we don't talk about are the ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences, those adverse community environments. We're not talking about maternal depression. We don't talk enough about emotional and sexual abuse, physical and emotional neglect, and even lack of opportunity, economic mobility, and even social capital. Violence in our communities, discrimination. A lot of people don't understand that is connected to trauma, that is connected to mental illness, and also the physiological aspect of trauma. And we see the diseases and so forth, and we understand here in America, I want to look at a statistic for you. Here in America, what we realize is that 7 out of 10 of our youth experience some form of trauma. 7 out of 10. So why do I need the teachers to understand this? Because I need the teachers to see it when they walk in the classroom. Trauma in children in the brain. Brains in pain don't learn. You're not going to get anything from those students. And you can punish your child for not doing the homework, but it doesn't matter how much you punish. If that child is experiencing something, all you're doing is further traumatizing that child. So it's about having these conversations, bringing them to the forefront, understanding. I started last Saturday, actually, I started the Trauma and the Brain initiative. So I'm teaching anyone that wants to learn about trauma and the brain so that we can understand, so that we can better service. And I love what Naomi said when she said, it's the present. We do say children are the future, but children are right now. They're right now remodeling, they're showing us what we have modeled for them. And if we don't get it right, there's no way that we can transfer to them the correct message. And so I just wanted to share that because, it's so essential that we look at the ACEs. If you're going to do any work with trauma at any level in any country, you need to understand the ACEs and the effect that the ACEs have on the community, on the individual, and on the family in order to take anyone through the journey to wholeness. It's essential. And so we have to look at that because it plays a role in incarceration of our youth. It plays a factor in human trafficking. When I started to look in our schools and I started to see the mental illness component of our children, I was able to make a connection to human trafficking. And so when we did that and we went to the legislators, it took us 6 years. But in 2018, myself and my colleagues were able to pass the End Child Sex Trafficking Bill. Why? Because we were able to make that connection, that trauma, that child that comes to school sometimes looking disheveled, sometimes carrying a pocketbook like a Louis bag, and you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, how your grades aren't doing well, but you can rock a Louis bag or a Gucci bag, and you come into school sometimes late, and you realize that the boy that's picking you up is so much older than you. When we started to look at the factors, we were able to make those connections. So I mentioned all of that so that you can have a broader way of looking at a global aspect and not a tunnel vision aspect of how much we really need to look at the foundational factors, the ACEs, and how we can better service our youth with mental illness.
That was brilliant. And you've literally given us the title of this event, which is going to go on YouTube, Brains in Pain Don't Learn. I mean, what a quote that is.
Yeah, thank you. Well, fantastic, Dr. C. It's such a pleasure to listen to you. I will say that one line that I will take with me from what you just said, besides everything else, but of course, we punish the child, we punish the behavior you just said, and not understand the root. If I don't remember exact words, but that was the meaning of it. And I really, really appreciate that, because we talked about social media and we talked about bullying, and we know that the rising statistics of suicide are horrendous all over the world. And so many young people have committed suicide or have taken their life to suicide. I should reword my language, because of bullying. So come back to understanding where that person that is actually behaving that way and using that language, that anger to relate to others is coming from. And if we are show some empathy to that person that is bringing that trauma and taking it on some other people, I think that we will be able to make a difference as well. Understanding where they come from, understanding the roots, which is what Dr. C was talking about. And I want to bring that further into the school because I had the fortunate opportunity to film while doing connecting the dots in Brazil into a holistic school where the teachers talk about understanding that that child comes to life with their unique abilities. And then is the nature and nurture. How do we nurture that? And how do we take that in a way that that child will shine in the future? And it comes from understanding that the educational system with these generations has to change. We are in a world where the competition is enormous. The young people are constantly talking about the pressure they have at school. And if we go back to the large amount of young people taking their own lives because of the pressure, because of not being able to follow the requirements of the schools, to not be, someone said to me in an interview, if I come second, I am the first, if I am second, I am the second loser. I'm the first loser. They don't understand failure. Even coming second, it's already a failure. So the system has to change, and it has to be a holistic approach into the schools. The pressure that young people are having on marks and being able to know how much they got, an A or a B, is that a good one or is not conducive to bringing them to perform. So the more we understand that the education is more than just that math, but that understanding the full evolution of that child from all aspects will actually bring the future to what Dr. C was talking. Let's understand that if that child is not supported as a person, will not be able to perform academically, and that it's not all about educating academically and having that big mark that is going to make that person a better person at the end of the road, because that's where we are driving, what we've been driving for so long, but this generation is not being able to cope with that. That's why here in Toronto, at the University of Toronto, there were 4 suicides last year, and they were all due to the academic pressures. So that is one example of the hundreds of thousands that I have heard over the period of working on this film. So I think it's very, very important to take note academically about a holistic education that is needed to be able to tackle mental health. And in doing that, just to finish, with Connecting the Dots, together with UNICEF headquarters, we have worked on a facilitator's guide to accompany the screenings of the film, to be able to teach whoever is hosting that opening conversation with the film to have a safe space and to also address the different targets. So we work really, really hard for many months together to be able to address how do we host a conversation about mental health, be it with the film. Yes, it's the beginning of opening up that conversation, but gearing to parents, gearing to teachers, gearing to educators, gearing to policymakers, gearing to community, to parents. So what Dr. C was talking about, her curriculum, that's exactly what's needed, is how do we bring each target that is important player into making this happen to the youth, into a way that the youth is participant in all of the conversations, and that we are together bringing it in a way that that is understood by everybody and that it's educated from the grounds up. So
if it's okay with Steve, I'd like to ask you all a personal question, and you don't have to say anything, but you can just raise your hand or write yes in the chat. Is that okay with you, Steve?
Yeah.
It's a very deep and personal question, but I'll be the first one to put my hand up. Please put your hand up for chat, or please type yes into the chat to say if you've ever tried to self-harm or commit suicide. Yeah. And I think we've all done it as teenagers or as young adults. And you have to live with that trauma. You have to live with those marks on your body. And people don't understand the shame and guilt that comes with sorry, I'm getting emotional, that comes with, look, almost everyone. And I think everyone here can vouch how lost they were when they tried to hurt themselves or kill themselves. So if you could speak to your inner child or your past self now, what is it that you'd like to say to them? Please let me know who would like to go first. I'd really appreciate it.
Well, I think the 2 people that have their hands up currently on the screen are probably ideal.
Please.
So Daisy, you first.
That's powerful. That actually gave me shivers. As I said earlier, I struggled with self-harm. It was an addiction that I had for many years, and that's something that a lot of people miss as well, is how addictive it is. And like you said, like the scars on my forearm, I look at them every day of my life, and I will see them every day of my life. And I don't think I've quite dealt with that yet. I don't know if it's something that you ever completely heal from. It's just something you learn to accept and live with. If I could say something to my past self, that's a powerful question. I don't know what I would say. I don't think there would be something that I could say that would make it better. I would say have hope, because I didn't have any hope, and hope is again powerful it's indescribably powerful, the power that a little spark of hope can have. And that's why I talk about mental health now, because I didn't see people talking about it, and I needed to. I needed to see people that had been through that and come out the other side and were living lives. They were full of joy and they were doing something they were passionate about. I didn't see anyone. I saw people who had come through the other side and they were like, oh, don't trust doctors, don't take medication. Oh, no one's going to understand ever. And it was all these negative messages telling me that I was never going to make anything of myself and I would never get past it. So that if I could give myself a message, it would be have hope. And I think that's something we need to remember with the youth. To briefly, just very quickly, appreciate what Dr. Coralanne was saying before about trauma and brains in pain don't learn, I think was what she said. That trauma-informed context is so important for people working with children. It's so important for us as adults and for children themselves to recognize their mental health in the context of their environment and their societies and their communities. Because as someone who was told as a teenager, you know, you have a chemical imbalance, you have all these things wrong with you, you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, you need to see this person, you need to take all these tablets every day, you need to go into the psychiatric ward. Like, everyone was telling me things that I needed to do and things that were wrong with me and how I could be fixed. But no one, and I appreciate it's very difficult to do this, no one built that bond with me where I would actually feel comfortable telling them what was going on. I didn't even really understand it myself. How was I going to share that with someone that I didn't know? I mean, I was brought up in this environment of, I would tell people closest to me something and then they would throw it back in my face. It's you internalize all of these things and you start to believe that you are a bad person and you are broken and you're never going to make anything of yourself. And so what's the point? Like, you may as well just get drunk all the time and take drugs and self-harm. And what's the point in even trying? No one's going to understand you. No one's going to help you. And it's so easy once you start having those messages internalized, you just spiral. And who's going to intervene? I don't have anything further to add to that, but it's just that trauma informed is just everything to me. It's absolutely everything. Recognizing there's nothing inherently broken or bad about you. Everything can be healed if you put the work in, and there is always hope.
I have to say, I just started getting as well, I guess, the shivers, just hearing you all talk, and I guess your passion as well. It's contagious. So thank you so much. I'm sorry, my dog.
Your dog is also very passionate, so don't worry about it. It's fine.
Doesn't like when people are entering the premises. But I just wanted to share that, I definitely, I did a lot of self-harm, and I did try to commit suicide as well. And I guess, like, if I could go back to my childhood and just tell myself something, it would just be that you are worth it, because that's something I've often felt like I'm not worth it. I don't deserve to be here. Nobody likes me. I'm just a waste of space. And that's not true. And it's just, I've learned, of course, over the years not to listen to these intrusive thoughts. But I also just wanted to say that these things are trauma. And I know that when we look at trauma, the first thing we might think about is, okay, it's if you are raped, beaten, and those things are surely trauma. They are in all aspects. But trauma can also be maybe your mom scolds you, right? And she shouts at you and says, don't do that, or something to that effect, right? Or your teacher. I remember when I was in school, I'm not the most attentive person. So my teachers would always tell me I'm careless. I'm like, I don't pay attention. And so I went on to think, oh, I'm just so careless. I never pay attention. And so that affected me greatly. And it affected my ability in school to believe that I could perform well in school. And I didn't perform well because I always thought I'm not smart, right? So these things kind of echo and they leave this mark on you for the rest of your life. And that's where I, as a teacher, I just try my best not to tell my students anything like that. Just positive reinforcement. And when they do something wrong, it's not to tell them in a way that I think will affect them. It's to explain to them, to break it down. And I think that's important. So yeah, and I just really wanted to thank all of you for sharing. I know it's hard, and being vulnerable is it's scary. I know for me it is. But I'm the same way, Davy. I share my story because I once felt like, there was no one I could talk to. There's no one that understood this internal pain I was having. So it is very refreshing and it's very hopeful, I will say, to see all of you leading the way. So thank you for your work. You guys have inspired me, and I hope to do things as great as you all are doing. So thank you so much.
Hi. Can you
Hi,
hear me?
Wafa.
Hi. If I want to say something to myself, 4 years ago when I started to suffer from mental illness, that I'm going to be okay. I'm not alone. My mom and dad, before they passed away, they always prep us from what's going to happen next. So that life will still be good. I shouldn't think about it before. I'm going to find good people who will help me. So yeah, I'm sorry. But
It's
I'm
fine,
okay.
Wafa.
I'm okay. Alhamdulillah. I was so scared for the last days of Ramadan that I could hurt myself. But alhamdulillah, it didn't happen.
Alhamdulillah.
So I shouldn't think of all of these you can say elements that make me have all these issues. I shouldn't let this affect me this badly. Yeah, they are in a better place, and I'm okay. Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Wafa, we're here to support you, and you are indeed, like Sahar said, a warrior, and you are hope. So thank you so much. Thank you. It means a lot.
To follow that, it's a very moving story, and I know Wafa goes into a bit more detail on the podcast episode in regards to that and where she is now, which is truly inspiring in itself.
Before I even say what I wanted to say, I just about myself, I just wanted to say to the three amazingly brave and courageous young women that spoke before me, how impactful your lived experiences, and how we honor you for sharing those experiences with us, and how grateful we are that you are here, because you add so much to the human existence. You make us better. I'm speaking from a clinician standpoint. You make me better. Without your lived experiences and your stories, I wouldn't fight the way I do. I fight and beat a drum for women like you so that your voices are heard in places that you will never go. They know about you because once I travel anywhere, I take you with me. The changes I implement is because of women like you. So I want to say thank you from the bottom. Y'all gonna make me cry. From the bottom of my heart.
Sorry, we're already all there. I blame myself for bringing up this question, but it needed to be done.
I'm gonna get you after this. I'm telling you, because but I had to say that to you because when I think of my younger self, that young child that was molested, and I think of the fact that I didn't think that I had anything to bring. After that, when I think about how my life didn't seem as though it was worthy of anything. And I'm at the place today where I'm doing the work that I do. One thing I would say, and that's why I work a lot with sexual violence as well, but one thing I learned is not to define my existence by my violation, not to define myself by the pill bottle, by trying to empty that pill bottle and just saying that's it. I don't define myself according to that, you know? And so it's about looking at that bigger picture, the impact. For me, I tell people, you know, if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be this amazing woman today. Because, you know, you got to pat yourself on the shoulder sometimes. You know, you got to.
All the time.
You got to encourage yourself, right? You have to encourage yourself and know that nothing you've been through gets to define you. No one that has said anything negative gets to define you. You are the tapestry of human existence, and you're beautiful. You're beautiful. Absolutely. All by yourself with whatever you've been through in your life. That's what helped to shape you to be so miraculous and divine here on the earth. And so, you know, I think it helped me to be a better psychologist because I did go through that, because I am transparent enough to say, yeah, me too. It's the truth. I wanted to end it. I was hurt. Someone violated me and I didn't think it was fair, but I took my power back by saying, I'm gonna be a doctor and I'm gonna make sure that no other young girl or young boy have to feel as though they don't deserve their space here on the earth. And so Steve, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you so much for creating this space for us, because I get to be with my sisters and brothers from all around the world. And I'm able to see how vital they are to the work, how vital each person plays to help to heal humanity. And so I thank you, Steve, for this. I think we have created an amazing global, I don't know what you're gonna call it, Steve, but you really gotta make something out of this. This can't be like number 3 and end it. We gotta keep this going somehow, because these are powerful people that's in front of me. And I thank you all so much. And please know that wherever I am, I carry you. I carry you. Thank you.
Steve, you're running for Prime Minister or not? We're going to reverse. First of all, we're reversing Brexit.
No.
For me as a storyteller, my films are all about raising awareness of people that don't have a voice or that are not brave enough to bring out a voice on their own, and they just need that open space to be able to feel safe and to be able to share. And you have created this here, Steve and Saba, today, and I think that that's commendable. For me, I promise always all the people that participate in any of my films that I am going to take their voices everywhere. This is the intention. Their voices are symbolizing hundreds of thousands of others who would resonate and identify with those stories. So that story that you're sharing today is very, very valid, because other people who don't have the courage to talk about will be inspired by listening to you, will be inspired to saying, if she can do it, I can do it. If she has been able to come to the other side, I can also do it. And I have seen it. I have seen it with the reaction and testimonies of so many of the stories that I bring forward from people that have been brave enough to share, and the reaction and the implementation of changes, as I can call it, from the way that we talk on impact, that we have been able to do and to accomplish by the stories that people are talking about and that you're sharing today. So I wanted to thank you for bringing me into this conversation, for all of your contribution, and for creating a space where we all feel safe to talk about it. And to all of you who share your personal stories, my heart goes to you, and continue talking about it. So thank you so much.
So again, I would obviously like to thank the panelists for their invaluable contributions. It has been a very powerful discussion. So again, thank you everyone for being a part of this great conversation.